Welcome to Perspectives from HSBC. Thanks for joining us. And now, on to today's show.
Today, we will do a deep dive into ASEAN's success story as a growing global political and economic power. We're delighted to be joined by Mr. George Yeo, former Singapore Foreign Minister and currently a visiting scholar at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy in the National University of Singapore. Welcome, George, to the Global Investment Summit, and thank you for joining this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Che Ning.
Before we start, I'd like to set the scene for our discussion. Established in 1967 with 5 members, ASEAN has grown to 10 member states. ASEAN is currently the 5th largest economy in the world, with a GDP of almost $4 trillion, and is well on track to becoming the 4th largest in the world in 2030. ASEAN is also the 3rd most populated entity in the world after India and China, with around 700 million people. Without further ado, let me kickstart my first question for you, George. Can you explain to us why ASEAN has been such a success, and what are the critical ingredients for the countries in the region to work together?
During the Cold War, ASEAN was divided between 2 camps. And the Mekong River, instead of being a river which nourishes us, became a dividing line between 2 worlds. With the end of the Indochina War, there's been peace, and ASEAN has helped to maintain the peace in the region, without which economic development is not possible. And now there's a genuine regional sentiment. I feel myself a citizen of ASEAN. I feel myself a Malayan, a Singaporean. And this is where the monsoons blow over, this is where we eat durians, where the food is always delicious, where we welcome people from all corners of the world. And with geopolitical competition intensifying, ASEAN as a neutral platform, friendly to everybody, will play an important role in furnishing a platform where everyone can meet on the basis of equality and cooperation. This has been ASEAN's contribution to a much larger region. And internally, we're becoming better connected. Good progress has been made. There's a few patches which have not done well, like Myanmar. But on the whole, if you visit Brunei or Laos or Vietnam or Indonesia, even in the third-tier cities, you see significant improvement. And there's every hope that if we can maintain another generation of peace, that many of us in the region can pole vault into the first world.
How do you see the role of ASEAN in this increasingly multipolar world? And how do you see yourself being positioned between the East and the West?
We were, except for Thailand, colonized by Western powers. And we had to fight for independence. But after that, under Pax Americana, many of us made rapid strides and achieved tremendous economic progress. So the American presence is important in maintaining open lines of access and creating a larger environment of peace where trade can move freely, where funds can move freely. But America is now going through a phase where it's self-questioning. It takes a more selfish view of its own national interests. And under Trump, there's no embarrassment now in saying America first. And, well, remember that. China has, of course, become more important to all of us. And ASEAN's trade with China has been growing steadily. We now have a free trade agreement with China. And last year, our trade with China, I think, reached $1 trillion. The Belt and Road has been a great boon to us. But as our account with China grows, there's a feeling that we better diversify so that we're not completely dependent on China and not have to have a negotiating relationship which is lopsided. So the more we see our accounts with China growing, the more all of us in ASEAN seek diversification. And this is true whether you're Indonesia or Thailand or Philippines or Vietnam or Singapore for that matter. And our approach is avoid taking sides, be friendly to everybody, but look after ourselves. And if any major power pushes too hard, you'll find us leaning in a direction you do not like. So please remember that.
Maybe I can pick up on one thing you mentioned about China being now your top trading partner. With this China trade growing in leaps and bounds over the years, how do you see the relationship with China evolving as more Chinese companies invest in ASEAN, and also Chinese companies wanting to sell more products, consumer products in ASEAN? With the young population, with the increasing middle class, it's a great market for Chinese products. How do you see that evolving?
It's another cycle of history where China's ascendancy radiates an influence into Southeast Asia and brings prosperity into the region, into all corners of the region. There's great complementarity between China and Southeast Asia. China is dry, China is cold, China is aging. Southeast Asia is balmy, is young, is full of water. And we are more or less in the same time zone. So even though you travel long distances in East Asia, you don't have jet lag. That's a big plus. And as China develops, you can imagine a lot of older people wanting to avoid the cold will come down south.
Yes.
In recent years, they have developed a liking for durians. And I've been told, I can't verify it, that Xi Jinping himself likes durians and once told an ASEAN leader that China's market for durians would at least be 6 billion fruits a year. And durian producing countries in Southeast Asia are reacting to that opportunity. And it's only one fruit. So there will be a two-way intercourse. And with trade tensions between America and China, many companies, including Chinese and American companies, are relocating to Southeast Asia to avoid the line of fire. And some of them become Singaporean or Malaysian or Indonesian. So this, if we play it right, we will be a beneficiary of tension, of some tension in the world. But of course, if it leads to great conflict, then it's not good for us.
I've heard you talk in the past about how ASEAN and China understands each other through a long history of neighboring countries, and the fact that there's obviously big ethnic Chinese communities in Southeast Asia. How does that help the interaction between ASEAN and China? And how do you contrast that with, say, a more Western perception of China in terms of being able to understand the culture and the driving forces?
The role of the Chinese communities in Southeast Asia is a very interesting one. During the colonial period, they were intermediaries between the metropolitan powers and the local communities. They were compradors, they were traders, they were shopkeepers. Now the China trade is flowing in the opposite direction. And investments and trade are coming in from China. And curiously, the same local communities, ethnic Chinese, are intermediating between Chinese investors and traders and local communities. Of course, this sometimes creates tension, say in countries like Indonesia or Philippines, Thailand or Malaysia. But for the next phase of history, I see them playing a very positive role. They have greater understanding of China. And if you have greater cultural understanding, you're better able to assess risks. Therefore, the cost of capital goes down. And this facilitates trade and increases profitability and the viability of many projects. This is the role the overseas Chinese, the ethnic Chinese overseas are playing in Southeast Asia, including Singapore.
maybe we can switch gears a little bit and talk about ASEAN relationship with the U.S. and obviously ASEAN, as you say, has positioned itself very well between China and the U.S. But with the new administration in the U.S., there's more focus on balance of trade, more focus on ensuring that intellectual property and technology is kept safe within sort of with a national interest lens. How do you see the ASEAN relationship with the U.S. in a new era developing, especially because of the increasing focus on balance of trade, that ASEAN collectively runs a trade surplus with the U.S.?
Well, all of us worry about Trump because he is dramatic in the way he negotiates. But in the end, he wants a deal. He's pro-business. If he screams at you, it's because he wants something from you. And if he gets at something, you become friends again. Because Trump's core is, in fact, well developed from a young age. He's against war. He's pro-business. He's not ideological, which is okay with us because we ourselves are diverse. We believe in mutual non-interference. And you talked earlier about the 70 years of Bandung, which is really peaceful coexistence, but mutual cooperation on the basis of equality and respect. And if America, if others show that to us, you find us reciprocating. But the balance that we achieve is a dynamic one. It's not static. If you are static, you will topple over. It has to be a Tai Chi balance, you know. You've got to respond to shifting forces and always adjust your center of gravity so that you can be in a good position and flexible. With Trump, we've got to adjust position because he's different from Biden. And after Trump, we'll have to adjust again. China is more steady. But America, we must expect from administration to administration changes. But this is part of Southeast Asia. Every 6 months, the monsoons change direction.
That's a great observation because one of the phrases that I hear being talked about with Southeast Asian diplomacy is this notion of bamboo diplomacy, which is about being adaptable, being flexible, but yet maintaining good balance so that you're able to respond quickly to shifting forces.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we don't have typhoons in Southeast Asia except in the Philippines. But under storm force wind, the bamboo will still be there.
Bend but not yield.
It may bend, but it will not break.
Yes.
It will not be uprooted.
Yes.
That is what we should try to achieve in Southeast Asia. But it's done with effort. It doesn't happen automatically. It's held by instinct. There's a deep instinct in Southeast Asia because historically, to quote Professor Wang Kengwu, we are where mandalas overlap. So in every country of Southeast Asia, the mandalas of China, of India, of the Middle East, of the West overlap. So there's an instinct to adapt to the foreigner whom we meet. It's an Australian today. It's a Japanese tomorrow. It's an American the next day. It's an Italian the day after. You have to make small adjustments all the time in order to establish a relationship, trust, friendship, and do business.
What are your observations in terms of Chinese soft power and this, and how you see AI and Chinese technology affecting ASEAN's economic outlook and the strategy?
Well, Chinese soft power is different from American soft power, the way Joseph Nye described it. There was a time when America was light on the hill, and we are attracted to that light. And many of us wanted to be American, to go there, to live there, to excel there, to take up green cards, even citizenship. And in that America, you're welcome. you take your oath of loyalty to the Constitution, to the flag, you're American. You can vote. You can take part in politics. China is not like that. China is, I think, 93% Han Chinese. Is unusually homogeneous for a population 4 times that of the US. And this homogeneity of China is not accidental. It's not the result of policies. It's an instinct maintained by culture, transmitted from mother to child through mother's milk, and then elaborated in rituals, in institutional arrangements. So China is not a missionary power. China does not want you to become Chinese. It wants you to respect China. It wants you to know that it's a high culture, but it doesn't seek from you conversion. There's a big difference. So the Chinese will put on a lion dance, they will demonstrate Tai Chi to you, but it's okay, you don't have to be Chinese. We just want to be friends. In the case of America, they want to convert you because they think it's good for you. So they're 2 very different civilizations. And when we talk about soft power, we must make that distinction.
Yes.
But DeepSeek is different. DeepSeek, I think, was a master stroke because they could have made it proprietary, like OpenAI. But they decided, probably with Beijing's encouragement, make it open source, make it available to everybody, including Singaporeans, so that we can all grow from there. It has greatly destroyed monopoly power in the US, and much value has been destroyed. But the result is a fertilization of a wide area. Now we don't all have to build our large language models. Upon these large language models, we can now build our small language models for specialized areas like HSBC and develop an advantage there. This is amazing. And I think it will transform China and the world. And it's a much better model than what is currently being developed in the US. So by this move, I think China has kind of shocked the US and the world. But it's still early days. AI will change our lives upside down. There will be positive and negative side effects. This is just the beginning.
What are the things that you worry about that could derail the growth and the success of ASEAN going forward?
But I'm not sure about how useful it is to amalgamate ASEAN's accounts into one entity, because we're not like the EU. We don't have a common budget. We don't
common currency.
Don't have a common currency. We don't allocate funds to one another. We are a collection of countries which share a common fear of the kind of world we're entering, and therefore huddle together. In order to play our role in a larger region, we ourselves must have a feeling for one another, be connected, and be mutually interdependent. That takes time because intra-ASEAN trade is still small compared to our trade with the rest of the world. But it will grow. And increasingly, there's a sense of ASEAN citizenship. Some years ago, when I was still a minister, we agreed that in all ASEAN embassies around the world, following the Europeans, we will fly not only our national flag, we also fly our ASEAN flag.
Okay.
But we are not like the Europeans who are very Cartesian in their approach, who make decisions to the late night. We kind of agree generally and we move along, like water flowing. That's the ASEAN way. It's been good for us because we're diverse, we're at different levels of economic development, and it reduces tension. There's a sense of obligation by those more advanced to help those less advanced, which is a good thing. Our concerns now are with Myanmar because the country is close to civil war. The good thing is all the parties are exhausted, and no one believes he can overcome all the others. And even though they fight each other, they don't want the country to break up. So even in the north, in Lashio, which was taken over by the other side, the Brotherhood of Three, above the three flags, they had the Union flag. So if on all sides you have the Union flag, then it's possible to conceive of a political arrangement where there is unity in diversity, kind of a lower level homeostasis in Myanmar. I think that's achievable. And under Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN, I think there'll be a fresh push to mediate in the domestic conflict. I don't think it'll get much worse, because no one wants it to get much worse. So while I worry about Myanmar, I'm not that worried. And I think we should not lose hope. The other area of concern is, of course, the South China Sea. And there, if it's just between us and China, I think we can find a compromise solution where we recognize that we have different views. We set them aside and we concentrate on joint development, look after our fishermen, and work to mutual benefit. And with Hainan becoming a free trade port, I think we can conceptualize the South China Sea as a Mediterranean Sea. In other words, not something to be carved up and divided, but something which unites us. And this we should try to do. And I think it's achievable.
And it's the start of the One Belt, One Road, when the great Admiral Zheng He rowed his ships, steered his ships down into the Africa.
And even before that,
Yeah.
going all the way back to the Han Dynasty, which is why the Pearl River estuary plays a very important role in the history of China and in China's links to Southeast Asia and to West Asia. I mean, it was a role played by Pune, then by Macau, and now by Hong Kong.
Yes.
So I feel optimistic for Hong Kong.
I'm very glad that you raised Hong Kong, because obviously we're all sitting here in Hong Kong, and we always comment upon, the friendly competition between the two states, Hong Kong and Singapore. And I'd very much like to hear your perspective on how do you see Singapore and Hong Kong's role evolving as Hong Kong, obviously under one country, two system, is now positioned as an international financial center for China, so that we have great financial firms and conferences that we can have in Hong Kong. And then Singapore's role as the financial capital for essentially Southeast Asia, and a great hub for wealth management and trade.
There's some rivalry between Hong Kong and Singapore, which is exaggerated. The much greater relationship is complementary. Is complementary. I remember chatting with the penultimate British governor of Hong Kong, Sir David Wilson, and he put it this way: he said it's like a competition between Oxford and Cambridge. At the boat race, we are taking sides and so on, but really it's a complementary relationship, and there's growing equity interest of one in the other. Now, I myself, I'm a permanent resident of Hong Kong, and there are many families which straddle both sides, and each energizes the other. The distance from Singapore to Hong Kong is the distance from London to Moscow. We're in different geographical regions. Neither can replace the other. Hong Kong cannot replace us in Southeast Asia. Singapore cannot replace Hong Kong in China. But we can help each other. And if we help each other, each is more effective, stronger, more prosperous.
I want to ask you, before we wrap up, I want to ask you one final question. As Hong Kong goes through a structural change in the economy, what observations and what advice do you have to give for our current government in terms of how we should think about our public finances, investments, and how we should position Hong Kong, for the future?
Hong Kong has crossed the most difficult mountain pass. Things are being done. The bureaucracy can be more effective, but it's moving in the right direction. The key is Hong Kong is useful to China. One country, two systems depend completely on Hong Kong being outside the wall and being useful to China outside the wall. China, to protect its homogeneity, always has a wall around it. It can be a physical wall, it can be a financial wall, it can be a biological wall, but that's how China preserves itself. In the crisis, the gates are shut, Hong Kong is outside, Shenzhen is inside. And what's outside will help what's inside and connect it to the rest of the world. That's Hong Kong's position. So I don't see Hong Kong's role diminishing at all. Hong Kong is precious to China. If there were no Hong Kong, China will have to create another Hong Kong. I think it's important, given the importance of ASEAN to China, that Hong Kong builds up its presence in all the 10 countries of Southeast Asia, including Myanmar. Now, there are already links through business networks, but there should also be governmental links. I've long felt that Hong Kong needed an external service, high level, not just trade officers, who function like trade ambassadors, including Brunei and Myanmar, and help develop a knowledge network and relations network throughout Southeast Asia. Because looking into the future, Southeast Asia will become more and more important to China and to Hong Kong.
The prospects for ASEAN is truly bright, and with the increasing network and the increasing connectivity with Hong Kong and China, I think it will further deepen the trade corridors and the opportunities that we have with each other. Thank you.
Well,
George.
I remain optimistic for Hong Kong. I'm not selling my apartment.
Fantastic. And hopefully you add to your visits and your time in Hong Kong as well.
You can keep me your way. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Perspectives. Make sure you're subscribed to HSBC Global Viewpoint to stay connected